You know, it's funny how things happen. I got an email one day from Ed Chad. Now, he forwards a lot of interesting stuff to me here on the show. And thanks, Ed. Please keep it up. Now, y'all know Ed. He's been our director at OCA since Methuselah was a boy. Here's a great shot of Ed in action. That's Ed Chad, our OCA superhero, putting a cork in the oil derricks. Now, that's an act of civil disobedience. And it's virtual civil disobedience, which is a lot safer than the other kind. Now, Ed was forwarding an invitation he had gotten from Brian Grad. Brian is another of our OCA veterans, regarding a meeting with Eric Phillips. Eric, as it turns out, is the new executive director at Peninsula Public Access TV. TV, you say? Oh, I had to know more about this story. They have a real-life TV studio? Oh, I wish I could get in there to play. So, naturally, I had to run straight to their webpage and... Well, here, let me show you. Here we are at the Papa homepage. See those logos for different video platforms? Over to the right on the banner? Turns out Eric's plan is to be able to create content not only for cable subscribers, not only for the web, but eventually for all the major video platforms for phones and devices. Interesting, eh? They share their mission this way. The goal of Peninsula Area Public Access is to enable local content creators a way to engage a viewership. Well, we want to do that, as well as provide filming resources and training opportunities to those creators across the Olympic Peninsula. Well, our staff supports your production, and your production informs, entertains, and inspires the community. As you can imagine, I was not about to miss this meeting. It turns out Eric Phillips has been a very busy guy, upgrading and organizing their studio facilities and expanding the range of their programming potential into these digital social media platforms. And, of course, he was meeting with community groups who might want to make use of their capabilities and play with their wonderful toys. Which brings us back to that great meeting. Let's hear from Eric.
One of the things that I love doing is hearing brand new ideas for shows. I'm actually a graduate of digital cinematography. I'm currently back in college for my master's in television and film production. And what I try to tell everybody that wants to do new programming is the one thing you have to remember is this: everything's been done. Everything's been done in TV and film. It's how you do it that makes it whether people want to watch your show or not. And, if you have that gravity about you, or that information that people just latch on and can't wait to hear more, or the way you present it, there's all kinds of things that fall in line that really will make a show that most people would think won't work just explode and go viral. As far as somebody like Doug goes, Doug, I haven't read your blog. I apologize for that. But a format, when you look to do a format, if you plan to do something on TV, it sounds like you would be, I don't know, you would try for like an informative, maybe talk show, or just an informative piece or something like that. There's several different things we could rub together to come out with some sort of something that you would be happy with, and so would your followers. So I'm really excited and open to talking to anybody who would like to get on the air. Like I said, we're going to have like 8 different platforms to launch shows within the next few weeks. We have the ability to allow people to use a studio to film, to film a show. You can film it yourself and bring it to us if we can get it on the air. We have several people that have done that. And yeah, and if does anybody have any questions about that particular thing?
So there you have it. Peninsula Public Access will give us the opportunity to expand our presence on cable, on the web, and beyond through their outlets. Eric is ready to offer training on video equipment and production software. And if we join the club, we can get a low membership rate to make use of the studio when we want to use more space, maybe for a panel discussion, for dramatic presentations, one-to-one interviews in person, who knows? Or we can submit video programming from our expansive studios here in my closet. Options galore. So look for news of Olympic climate action and the OC report coming out on Peninsula Area Public Access. I'll be visiting Eric at the studio before this week is out, and bet I can get a shot of myself in real life sitting right where I am now in the world of pure imagination. On with the show. In this segment, I'd like to take us back to the Washington State Climate Assembly. Now, the Assembly has completed their task and delivered their report to the state legislature. And the information packed in these sessions is a phenomenal collection of the science, the facts, the possibilities for action, and the warnings of climate change, pitched to a broad audience, not of scientists and specialists, but to that assembly of ordinary concerned citizens of Washington State. But as we follow these sessions, we can dig a little deeper to discover the primary source materials on which these sessions have been built, and to better understand how it is that we know what the impacts of climate change will be under different scenarios of fossil fuel use. Today, I hope we can help you build your climate change research library. So let's go back to session 2, where we'll hear some clips from Dr. Amy Snover on the impacts of climate change in our Pacific Northwest.
And with that, I have the pleasure of introducing our first speaker for the night, Dr. Amy Snover, who will be presenting on climate change and climate impacts in Washington State.
I just want to tell you a little bit about the group that I direct, and so where a lot of this research is coming from. Gretchen mentioned I direct the Climate Impacts Group at the University of Washington. We're celebrating our 25th year this year, and the work we do is develop science understanding of the local impacts of climate change. We basically translate the big global stuff into the local impacts, and we work with folks to use that information in planning and decision making.
Whoa now. Let's step aside for just a moment and investigate this Climate Impacts Group. Who are they? What is their role in the struggle? Well, as it turns out, CIG, which is posted at the University of Washington and headquartered in Seattle, is one of the root sources of the knowledge we've gained over the last 2 decades about how we have altered our climate and how those changes will impact our region. Their scientific work and dissemination of their findings has proceeded apace, even in these dark days of climate denialism and political obstruction. Since 1996, 25 years ago, 2 years before I, your host, emigrated to the Great Pacific Northwest, the Climate Impacts Group has been at work gathering and analyzing the data, doing the science, and publishing the kind of detailed, meaningful studies that can guide governments, civic organizations, tribal councils, and private interests toward positive solutions to the many problems generated by a changing climate. The CIG is clearly a primary source for scientific findings about the climate emergency as it has emerged here in our great Pacific Northwest. Let's take a long journey to their headquarters on the web. Okay, here we are at the Climate Impacts Group homepage. They're at the College of the Environment, University of Washington. And their mission? The Climate Impacts Group is widely recognized for scientific discovery as an experienced creator of impartial and actionable science, and as a catalyst for building regional climate resilience. Now note, they say impartial, meaning based on trustworthy data and sound scientific method. And actionable means their analyses are structured in a way society can depend on in mounting our responses to the crisis. As an example, let me just take you to one of their resources. In their resources, their analysis tools, this is a great example of the work they do. And only the first one we're going to look at right now, heavy precipitation projections for use in stormwater planning. Value right down to the city and county levels, making decisions about heavy rainfall events that will be coming and how to be prepared. This is the kind of work that's being done by the Climate Impacts Group. Now, let's get back to the director of the Climate Impacts Group, Amy Snover, as she addressed the Washington State Climate Assembly. Professor Snover?
So as we look forward, we've already emitted lots of greenhouse gases, and we still are emitting more greenhouse gases every day. And so the question quite a while ago stopped being about whether climate will change as a result of human activities, but how fast and how much it will change.
Hold my tricorder. Is this not the graph of a temporal anomaly? Is the time stream bifurcating ahead of us? Are there 4 futures? What does this mean for the multiverse? But no, this is not science fiction. This is really happening. Let's pick up a few more bits of knowledge from Dr. Snover.
Okay, so there we go. I introduced myself. What do we anticipate in Washington State? Next slide. So this is a figure showing the rapid warming that we expect in Washington State, and the numbers that are from the graph are shown on the right if you'd rather look at it written down rather than in the picture form. So what I'm showing is that there's been some small, modest warming in the Northwest. Again, this is for the Northwest over the 1900s. And then as we go into this century, this figure shows 2 possible futures. So the next slide shows a summary from the National Climate Assessment. And I know the team is going to provide you with some links to the National Climate Assessment reports on the Northwest. But there are 3 main ways that those climate changes will unfold or link to consequences on the ground here in the Northwest. One is through these changes in water, in snowpack and water availability, transforming the nature of our mountain ecosystems and the stream ecosystems that depend on them. We also expect to see dramatic transformation of our forest landscapes through the combined impacts of increased fire, increased drought stress, increased insects. And then on the coastal areas, we expect to see major impacts from the combined effects of sea level rise, erosion, flooding, and river flooding as well. So these are the three main impact pathways that the National Climate Assessment laid out. If you like to think from the logic of, oh, the climate changes globally, then the climate changes regionally, and then those changes in temperature and precip, what do they mean for the actual ecosystems and hydrology and other things of our region? Assessment also pointed out that a core aspect of our risks here is how climate change will threaten critical Northwest infrastructure. So there are many, many different sort of hazards that climate change will pose to our infrastructure, from sea level rise and storm surge to more frequent heat waves and fires. And then finally, the National Climate Assessment really emphasized that climate impacts don't affect all equally. Some people are more exposed, more vulnerable, or less able to cope with these impacts. And in many cases, the impacts of climate change will just worsen existing inequities. So our resilience to warming's impacts is shaped by today's actions, again, which are about choices about how we build our bridges, prepare our farms, grow our communities, or other ways adapt our systems to prepare for these risks.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Snover, for being with us tonight and sharing your presentation as well.
Dr. Snover has given the Climate Assembly a lot of information to chew on in this presentation. It's a good start. But if you want to really get the scoop, if you want to dig in and get to know the whole story, here are some primary research sources you can look to. Now, these aren't reading materials. These are research tools for the serious climate warrior. For the big picture, at the national and regional levels, you can look to the 4th National Climate Assessment. This is Volume 2, Impacts, Risk, and Adaptations in the United States. Volume 1 of the assessment covers the hard science behind the conclusions. But in Volume 2, we move from the science of climate change to the art or practice of action in the climate emergency. Our own climate preparedness plan, focused squarely on the North Olympic Peninsula, was developed with the participation of some of our most effective Olympic climate action veterans, including John Camblick, Mike Doherty, and Bob Vreeland. In those names, we have personal and knowledgeable resources. We won't let them get away. And we can't go off without a hearty call-out to the Climate Impacts Group, focused firmly on the needs of our Pacific Northwest home, and led by Dr. Snover, whose presentation at the Assembly helped us to find these powerful resources. Put them in your Climate Studies bookmarks folder. If we want to be effective and persuasive advocates for climate action, and if we want to have the most impact on decision makers in D.C. and in Olympia, the better we understand the issues, and the more we know about where to go to find answers to our questions, the more powerful we are. Just saying. There is nothing I love better than to sit on the banks of the Dungeness at sunset, singing a song. Today is April 22nd, Earth Day 2021, and on this very day, we have completed episode 6 of the Olympic Climate Report. It's going into the can, and it'll be coming out to you this very afternoon. I hope you find something in here that will be informational for you, entertaining, maybe even inspiring. I know I'm really excited about the Peninsula Public Access TV project. I think we can do a lot with that. You guys, help me think it through, okay? Before I leave today, I want to share a few things that are coming up in future shows. In our very next episodes, we're going to be talking about the electric vehicle revolution, especially the North Olympic Peninsula EV Loop, a stretch of roadway I like to think of as the Great Ecotopia Highway. You know Ecotopia, the ecological utopia of our dreams? So there's that project, and some of those personal knowledgeable resources we talked about in the episode have been deeply involved in that project. So I'm going to be looking for you, Mike, for the next episode. And we're going to be talking about the Chronicles of Olympic Climate Action. We're going to be reaching back deep into the ancient history of Olympic climate action, all the way back to 2013 and even before, when Olympic climate action was first born. And there's one other thing. In my research for this show, I didn't have time to talk about this, but in my research for this show, I came across the climate action team right over here in Port Townsend. They're under the umbrella of Local 2020. And I'm going to be reaching out to them as soon as I get back from my vacation, what I came to talk about. Guys, I'm going on my vacation in a few days with my eldest, Robin. We're going to be going back to see the Redwoods once again. It's become a sort of a tradition in the family. And while I'm there, I'll be looking up the rangers, and I'm going to talk to them about the impacts of climate change on our precious redwood forests down there along the coast at the southern tip of our great Pacific Northwest. So that's coming. With those thoughts in mind and in this beautiful spot, let's take a few moments just to share a little joy of living. Because, guys, if we aren't finding joy in living, what are we living for? No use crying, talking to a stranger, naming the sorrows you've seen. Too many sad times and too many bad times, and nobody knows what you mean. But if somehow you can pack up your sorrows and give them all to me, you would lose them. I know how to use them, so give them all to me. No use rambling, walking in the shadows, trailing a wandering star. No one beside you, no one behind you, and nobody knows who you are. But if somehow you could pack up your sorrows and give them all to me, you would lose them. I know how to use them, give them all to me. No use gambling, running in the darkness, looking for a spirit that's free. Too many wrong times, too many long times, and nobody knows what you see. But if somehow you could pack up your sorrows and give them all to me, my friend. You would lose them, I know how to use them, so give them all to me. No use roaming, lying by the roadside, seeking a satisfied mind. Too many highways, too many byways, and nobody walking behind. Ah, but if somehow you could pack up your sorrows and give them all to me, you would lose them, I know how to use them, give them all to me. If somehow you could pack up your sorrows and give them all to me, my friend, you would lose them, I know how to use them, give them all to me. A joyous Earth Day to you all, and have a beautiful